About that is the head of innovation from Vodafone, Paresh Modi, and we would like to welcome him to the stage. He's going to talk to us about the uninvented future. I did him right back to...
Well, the future really is exciting. And today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that are happening now that are going to shape our future, and some of the inventions that actually haven't even happened yet. Before I even do that, I'm going to just take a little peek into our past to understand where we came from and where we've got to now, a little bit about where we're going to, and then into the future of things that haven't really been invented, in some cases haven't even been imagined. So 38 years ago, the IBM PC was launched, and even IBM didn't really believe in this, right? It was more to get their brand out for their shareholders to the consumers, but really, they didn't really believe in it. They had a forecast of 250,000 units over a 5-year period. And there were adverts in the Wall Street Journal from the likes of Steve Jobs really dismissing the whole thing. So, and of course, they were a roaring success, and they brought computing to the masses. After that, 32 years ago, this thing was launched. It was the mobile phone. And first generation, it was really heavy, really clunky, massively expensive, and people were very skeptical about that thing. And actually, it was only a first generation device, but it actually brought people together through communications, and we know now how important it is. Then the World Wide Web was launched, and this is where people started to come together even more across continents for free, to be able to share information, detail about their lives, about what each other are doing, and also used for businesses. So then all of these things started to come together, right? Because there was communications, there was computing, and there was this thing, the World Wide Web. What could you do with it when you brought all those things together? The iPhone was invented 12 years ago, or at least launched, and it was a magnificent piece of design, okay? So there, for the first time, you brought those elements together of communication, computing, in order to be able to access the world, information, entertainment, education. Of course, there were forerunners to this. There was the Symbian devices and the BlackBerry Messenger, but it was this one that was really usable, had all the applications around music and YouTube and so on. But the interesting thing here, the great piece of action here in terms of Apple's was the actual screen. The screen was really important because the touch screen was the one that actually worked for the first time, and the usability increased. Interestingly, when Echo launched, only 4 years ago, the digital assistant came to our home. The screen actually became less important. And it's much more about voice and our emotions and connecting with each other via a device that doesn't even have a screen. I know there are variants of that now and Google Home that have screens, but predominantly, assistants won't have screens in the future. In fact, assistants will be with us everywhere. They will get much smarter than these ones. There's amazing development happening across China around AI that will blow these devices out of the water. Assistants will be with us in our glasses, in the TVs, across our homes, and in many years' time, they'll be in our brains, and they'll even be active while we're sleeping. So assistants are going to be really important in the future. So lots of these things we wouldn't have really imagined were going to come about 38 years ago, right? And they're here now. And even some of the things that are here 4 years ago, we wouldn't really have imagined in the way that they're here. So the question is, what's being invented today that could shape our future. And I'm going to refer to this top 10 emerging technologies of 2019 that was just published a few weeks ago by the World Economic Forum. And I'd encourage you all to check it out. It's a brilliant piece of work. And it talks about some of the big trends that are happening now. I'm not going to talk about all 10 because I don't have the time, but maybe I'll pick out 2 or 3. Bioplastics is a really important topic. And so how do you create rigidity and sturdy materials, but from natural resources? There's a lot of work going on taking lignin, which is kind of plant waste, which would normally be thrown away and burnt, and turning that into durable materials. And there's a company called Technaro in Germany that's actually creating all sorts of things like phone case housing and furniture and all sorts of things from bioplastics. There's disordered drug protein as drug target. So number 4 there, it's we still haven't conquered with the therapeutics that we have some of the big diseases that are afflicting mankind. And rather than inventing brand new drugs, which of course is happening, there's a lot of work that's just going on right now around identifying and understanding these proteins and how disordered they are, and targeting parts of the proteins that are most vulnerable and most susceptible by existing therapeutics without even having to invent new medicines. And that's going to have big impact on cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and so on. Just pick out one more. Number 10, utility scale renewable energy storage. Right? So it's great having so much more renewable energy and sustainable from sustainable sources than we used to have. But all of that energy has to be stored. Typically, it's stored in batteries, which are made from lithium ion. Lithium ion batteries require cobalt. Cobalt is predominantly mined in Congo, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. 80% of the world's reserves are in one country, which then raises the issue around sustainability, around ethics of the mining, around all of the issues that go with how we're going to keep the supply chain going around batteries. So there's a company in the US that's actually bought a cavern 3 miles wide and 1 mile deep in Utah, where they are going to store either compressed air or hydrogen, which will then actually store the energy as well at the same time, which can be held for weeks or even months, as opposed to lithium-ion batteries, which have to be discharged in a matter of hours or days. So some really interesting things there. There's a load of things that I haven't even touched on there. So these are some of the things that are happening now that are going to shape some of the future that we're going to see going forward. For those of you who were here last year might remember this. This is the brilliant piece of work from Imperial College, which shows the table of disruptive technologies. As a recap, every one of these elements is a disruptive technology, and the green ones are the ones that are kind of happening now, like cryptocurrency. The yellow ones are kind of happening, are going to happen in the 10 to the yellow and red are going to happen in the 10 to 30 year time frame. And then the gray ones are probably never going to happen, but they kind of might. So in the gray ones, you've got things like telepathy, asteroid mining, so some really crazy stuff. But I wanted to kind of just touch on 2 or 3 of the ones that we touched on last year and just see where they've got to in terms of the evolution in the last 12 months. Those 3 are DNA storage, planet colonization, and humanoid sex robots. Okay? DNA storage. So scientists have discovered that actually you can hold so much data on one strand of DNA. Now, if you think about all the data that we produce, we are producing video, film, music, emails. They all need to be stored in data centers somewhere. So those data centers are getting full. And they're consuming enormous amounts of energy to keep them sustained. And so there has to be some kind of answer to storage. Storage is going to be one of our big problems that we need to solve. And so scientists have worked out that you can store so much information on one strand of DNA compared to binary. So what they've done is they've worked out how to create synthetic DNA and convert binary code into DNA code, and to be able to then store in DNA to compress the amount of physical space and power that you need to actually manage to hold the data. And the theory goes is that you can store a whole year's worth of data being generated by the entire world in 1 cubic meter. So that's the theory. Now, is it fantasy? Well, they've already started, and they already have. There has been experiments that have proved hugely successful of converting from binary to DNA and back again, video files, music files, and so on. So we're on our way. We're going to be probably 5, 10 years away before there's commercial-grade applications for that. Planet colonization, well, there were lots of talks. There was a lot of talk of Mars and so on last year. Well, this year, and it's the 50th anniversary of the lunar landing, there's lots of talk about the moon. And the point here is that scientists have discovered, or architects and space agencies have worked together to create a very detailed model of how you would create a lunar village on the southern crater of the moon, on the southern Shackleton's crater of the moon, which has constant daylight, loads of minerals to be able to create sustainability. And with a number of moon missions happening in the next 10 years, we'll see how much of that evolves. Humanoid sex robots. So this is Henry. Henry has all the physical features that you would want. And but the difference is he has deep artificial intelligence, he's evolving emotions, and for whatever reason, he has a posh British accent. Apparently, that's really attractive. I don't know. This lady here, the body was built in China. The software and the engineering is happening in Europe. She cost $5,000. Her name is Cynthia, but frankly, for that price, her name can be whatever you want it to be, right? So, so what else is there still to be invented? So just touching a couple of futurologists' predictions. There we go. Purchase high-quality emotions. So this futurologist has said that we, in 30 years' time, will be able to not just send pictures to each other, but we'll be able to send emotions, elements of code that we can transmit over the internet that then may somehow be transported and embedded into our brains through our systems, hopefully. And then you'll be able to also, there'll be a marketplace for buying and selling these. We talked last year a little bit about battlefield robots, and actually the battlefield robots could be as tiny as flies with onboard cameras and all sorts of communications equipment. And they could help military as well as farming and so on, and sensors like pollution sensors. AI has the power to has the answers to many of humanity's big questions, according to this futurologist. And I really believe it, because what this person's saying, what Oren Echioni is saying, is that if you think about all the research papers written by doctors since time began, it's virtually impossible to connect all those research papers, because today a tiny fraction of those papers are connected by specialists in those particular fields. And so the idea is, could AI bring all that knowledge together and to come out with answers that we wouldn't otherwise be able to come up with? So these are kind of 2 or 3 of the big ideas. There are some enablers in all of these things: storage, computing, talent is a big one. But I just want to quickly touch on networks. So here we have 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. Of course, we've just launched 5G as a telco industry, as Vodafone, and we think that 5G is going to have an immense impact on our society. And I'm going to just roll a video of an advert to demonstrate a little bit of what can be achieved with 5G.
It's a kind of magic.
When you were a child, you talked to cars, to puppets, to light bulbs. And you could change the world around you.
Magic, 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 magic.
You thought your eyes could see through obstacles. You thought your extending arms could reach anywhere. You right. The new Vodafone Giga Network 5G has arrived, where reality and imagination are finally connected.
So we believe that 5G will enable the next set of inventions. The digital society will be a key part, and new experiences will be there for all of us to consume. So the big question for you and for this innovation audience is, what is it that we can enable with these new experiences, and what can we do in the future? And I hope you're excited and as ready as I feel at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.